Mary had a little lamb.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Mr. Attorney General, were you fired, sir?
Sources tell CBS News Attorney General Bill Barr was not forced out of his job. His resignation letter is a full-page tribute to President Trump. Barr writes of the president's unprecedented achievements in the face of a partisan onslaught.
And Bill Barr should have stepped up.
But lately, President Trump has been upset that Barr said the Department of Justice found no evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election, a direct contradiction of the president's false claims. Barr also followed Justice Department procedure when he did not reveal a federal investigation into Hunter Biden during the campaign, but it clearly angered the president.
Bill Barr, frankly, did the wrong thing. Bill Barr, I know, had an obligation to set the record straight.
Barr's resignation came after the two met at the White House on Monday. In a tweet, President Trump said our relationship has been a very good one, and that Barr has done an outstanding job.
There was no evidence of the Trump campaign collusion with the Russian government's hacking.
Barr has been a loyal defender of the president, famously providing his own summary of the Mueller report in 2019, which created space for the president to claim he had been exonerated, which he was not.
No collusion, no obstruction.
But Barr has also admitted the president's interference in the Department of Justice made his job impossible. In an interview with CBS's Jan Crawford, Barr did not seem concerned about his reputation.
I'm at the end of my career. But
it's a reputation that you've worked your whole life on, though.
Yeah, but everyone dies, and I'm not, I don't believe in the Homeric idea that, immortality comes by, having odes sung about you over the centuries.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, dear God. Oh, Jeezle Pete. Heavens to Murgatroyd. So Bill Barr is gone, right? Bill Barr is gone now. Hang on a second. And in 2 years that Bill Barr was our Attorney General, he has managed to turn our country into a banana republic. I'm not kidding. He turned the Attorney General's position and the Department of Justice into a sleazy, third-rate law firm representing one client, Donald Trump. Instead of being the Attorney General of the United States of America, he decided that the unitary executive, this Federalist Society, lunatic fringe, right-wing idea about who is above the law and who isn't, has become entrenched in the Department of freaking Justice. I made a little list of every stupid, stinking, horrible thing that Bill Barr has done to the Department of Justice. And it began in 2017. Yes, it's true. Bill Barr's only been the Attorney General of the United States for 2 years. But it began way before that. In 2017, Bill Barr offered to be Donald Trump's personal attorney. And we know that because Bill Barr had confirmation hearings. You remember confirmation hearings? Yes. And during the confirmation hearings, Bill Barr was asked if he ever talked to Donald Trump about representing him. And, Bill Barr, being Bill Barr, freaking lied.
According to news reports, President Trump interviewed you and asked you to be part of the legal team defending him in the Mueller investigation twice. First in the spring of 17, when the investigation was just beginning, and again earlier this year. Is that correct?
No. I had one conversation with him that related to his private representation, and I can describe that for you.
Yeah, do.
That was in June of 2017. That's the only time I met him before.
You met him.
I talked to him about the job of Attorney General, which obviously is not the same as representing him.
It turned out to be.
Have you discussed the Mueller investigation with the president or anyone else in the White House?
I discussed the Mueller investigation, but not in any particular substance. I can go through my conversations with you if you want.
Well, not at this time, but I may come back to you and ask you about that. I don't want to take any more time. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, Diane, good thing that she just stepped down from being the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, because at 87 years old, you know, time's a ticking, and she didn't want to waste it listening to Bill Barr describe his conversations with the President of the United States about personal representation and the Mueller investigation. So then Bill Barr writes an audition letter to Donald Trump, right? He writes this beautiful letter to Donald Trump telling him, you know, the president can't really be prosecuted for any crime while he's president. You know that, right? And, you know, pretty much I'm the one that after Lawrence Walsh, I wonder if anybody remembers Lawrence Walsh. Anybody? See, I do, because Lawrence Walsh was the special counsel on Iran-Contra. And I was lucky enough to talk to Lawrence Walsh a few times about his 12, 13, 14, 15, 192 volumes of law-breaking that went into Iran-Contra, having to do with people like Oliver North, who was laundering all the money through Saudi Arabia. Anyway, Bill Barr comes along, and Bill Barr was the Attorney General, under H.W., and somehow managed to pardon everybody who committed crimes in Iran-Contra, to the dismay of Lawrence Walsh, who worked his tail off to show the American people what a real deep state looked like. You know, how America could conduct an illegal war that we're still paying for, in Central America. Yeah, in like, El Salvador, like, in Honduras. Yeah, how we could wage an actual illegal war and pay for it by selling tow missiles to the Iranians on the sly, getting the money from that, laundering it through Saudi Arabia, and then buying drugs with it and selling that on the streets of Compton, thereby creating a massive crack cocaine epidemic in the United States. But Bill Barr pardoned everybody, even though you could show what happened there. So that's Bill Barr. He writes an audition letter to Donald Trump telling him, you do know what I'm capable of. You do know, right? And then he gets the job, okay? We have these confirmation hearings, and, Kamala says to him, do you know what the Presidential Records Act? Well, I used to know. I don't know anymore. The president can't destroy any records. You're aware. Well, I used to know that. I don't know. I mean, it was just so bizarre. Anyway, he then becomes the Attorney General of the United States. The Mueller report, which we were all waiting for. We were all waiting for the Mueller report, okay? Everybody wanted to see it. Everybody wanted to know about it. Bill Barr, being somebody who understands the media, decided that he would give this misrepresentation of what was in the Mueller report. He literally lied to the American people 3 weeks before the Mueller report was released by him. And when it was released by him, it was so heavily redacted that we couldn't figure out what the hell it said. All we knew were there were 2 volumes, and the last volume, the second volume, had 10 instances where Donald Trump had obstructed justice, where a case was made, okay? And Bill Barr lied so hard 3 weeks earlier about what was in that Mueller report with regard to the president breaking the law that a federal judge named Reggie Walton, anybody remember any of this? I know, we've been through a lot. A federal judge named Reggie Walton, who was appointed in 2001, hence the Bush administration, actually wrote that Bill Barr was such a liar, seriously, that you could not trust anything that was coming out of his Department of Justice. I'm serious. I went and pulled that old article. It's unbelievable. It's from March of 2020. If you want to Google it yourself, judge calls Barr's handling of Mueller report distorted and misleading. New York Times.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So you were the Attorney General, obviously, under President George H.W. Bush, and in the Reagan White House, a senior policy advisor. So I'm going to assume that you are familiar with the Presidential Records Act. And my question is, in the context of a Washington Post report that the president took possession of an interpreter's notes documenting the president's meeting with the Russian President Putin in 2017. And the question then is, does that violate the Presidential Records Act?
Your initial assumption, I'm afraid, was wrong. I'm not familiar with that act.
What?
You're not familiar
at some time I was, but I really don't know what it says.
You don't know what it says?
No.
Okay.
At some point, I was.
President to keep documents and not destroy them, essentially.
At one point, I knew what it said, but I'm not familiar with it right now.
Oh my God. So we knew what we were in for. I mean, those of us who lived through, the H.W. Bush Iran-Contra days, we knew who Bill Barr was, and then we knew he wrote an audition letter. And then when Kamala Harris asked him a simple question about the Presidential Records Act, which everybody knows means you can't destroy presidential papers, he didn't know. I used to know, I don't know. So we knew he was going to lie. But then when he actually lied about this Mueller report and released it 3 weeks after he lied about it so that the chattering class on the, Fox News Network and the Hannity Show and the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the Laura Ingrams of the world could twist it and mangle it and mutilate it into, it was a complete, the president did nothing. He did no collusion, remember living through the no collusion, no obstruction, no collusion, no obstruction. There was a whole volume dedicated to the obstruction, and there were numerous chapters about 110 contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence officers and Russian ambassadors and Russian, troll farms. I mean, it was unbelievable. So that by the time the Mueller report was released 3 weeks later, heavily redacted. I mean, so much so that people had to sue to get, and we still haven't really seen the unredacted Mueller report. It's just so unbelievable. But the judge in this case, Reggie Walton, who is a D.C. Federal judge, he said, quote, Mr. Barr cannot be trusted. Mr. Barr cannot be trusted. Mr. Barr put forward a distorted and misleading account of the Mueller report's findings and lacks any credibility on the topic. He cited inconsistencies between the Attorney General's statements about the report when it was secret and its actual contents that turned out to be more damaging to President Trump. Mr. Barr's lack of candor calls into question his credibility and, in turn, the department's assurances to the court, Judge Walton said. Don't forget what this man did about a president who literally welcomed and relied on a foreign government that just hacked us again. You know that. There was this massive hack that the Russians just pulled off again. Emails again, right? And he declared there was no there 3 weeks before we got to see the heavily, and the judge said the sitting attorney general had so deceived the American people that he cannot trust assertions made by a Justice Department under Mr. Barr's control. Then, when Barr got away with this, okay, he didn't care that a judge said that he was a liar, that he was a distorter, that he had no credibility, and that he had taken the Justice Department and put it at Banana Republic levels of trust. Barr decided he would double down, and Barr started to say there was a global conspiracy. I believe that Trump's campaign was actually spied on by a deep state.
It's a big deal to use the law enforcement and the intelligence resources of the United States government to investigate a campaign of especially an opposing party. It was clear that the dossier was a sham. So what happens? What happens at that point? They don't tell the court, and they continue to get FISA warrants based on that dossier. And I don't know what the motivations were, and I'm not saying they were improper motivations, but I think it's premature to rule definitively there wasn't.
What a piece of work he is. Really, what a piece of work, okay? So now he's sitting there saying there was a global conspiracy, and then he tells Congress, because he gets away with lying, right? So now he goes and he tells Congress he believes spying occurred.
I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't, I guess you could, I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
It did not occur. Okay, it didn't occur. And then he interfered in Roger Stone's prosecution, and he was asking for a lighter sentence for a man who was convicted in like 7 minutes of 7 felonies, including witness tampering, lying to the court under oath, perjury, et cetera, et cetera. And then and he interfered in Roger Stone's sentencing portion, okay, so severely. And then it didn't even matter because Trump commuted Roger Stone's sentence in the end. So that was wasted, right? But he did it. And then he did the same thing with Michael Flynn after Michael Flynn pled guilty. And now Michael Flynn is so unleashed that he's literally calling for martial law in this country. That man is, I swear to God, he's QAnon. I swear he is Q, or at least one of the people that went into making this crazy lunatic fringe conspiracy theory that has sucked up the brains of like 35% of Americans to the point where we're going to have to send them off to some LSD concentration camp where they're going to have to take copious doses of psilocybin and get their brains back on track. The damage that these people done. Then he added a citizenship question to the census, and when the Supreme Court asked him why, he lied to the Supreme Court. Then he repealed DACA, which was then overturned by the Supreme Court, saying you can't overturn DACA because your Department of Homeland Security guy is serving illegally. And therefore, anything he did doesn't comport with the law, okay? Then he shielded Donald Trump from grand jury subpoenas about his taxes. And then he shielded Donald Trump from subpoenas from Congress about financial reports. Then he inserted the United States as the defendant to replace Donald Trump as the defendant in the E. Jean Carroll rape case. Remember that? Also overturned by the court, saying you cannot do that. Donald Trump is the defendant in the E. Jean Carroll rape case. And, of course, worked with Texas to file cases to repeal the ACA. And now Ken Paxton, an indicted attorney general in Texas, was just served a subpoena last week for financial crimes. And then the pièce de résistance, and I mean that, he put a small unmarked army together to gas peaceful protesters.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Mr. Barr, on June 1st, there were protests against the murder of George Floyd and police brutality in Lafayette Park. Let us not be distracted by you or my GOP colleagues as to what these powerful and massive protests were actually about. They were about the persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement, and finally, an awakening in America of the conscience of our country. And yet, your response, Mr. Barr, was to direct federal officers to close in on the protesters and to use shields offensively as weapons, tear gas, pepper balls, irritants, explosive devices, batons, and horses to clear the area just so the president could get a photo op. So I do want to ask you, do you think that your response, do you think the response at Lafayette Square to tear gas, pepper spray, and beat protesters and injure American citizens who were just simply exercising their First Amendment rights was appropriate?
Well, first, It's my understanding that no tear gas was used on Monday, June 1st.
Mr. Barr, that is a semantic distinction that has been proven false by many fact checkers.
How is it semantic?
Do you think?
How is it semantic? Tear gas is a particular compound.
You talked about chemical irritants, and it has been proven false by reports. So just answer the question. Do you think that it was appropriate at Lafayette Park to pepper spray, tear gas, and beat protesters and injure American citizens?
Well, I don't accept your characterization of what happened, but as I explained, the effort there was...
Mr. Barr, I just asked for a yes or no, so let me just tell you, I'm starting to lose my temper. According to sworn testimony before the House Natural Resources Committee by Army National Guard officer Adam DeMarco, who was there, this was, quote, an unprovoked escalation and excessive use of force against peaceful protesters.
Well, I don't
Numerous
remember,
media
I don't remember
reports
DeMarco as being,
Mr. Barr, excuse me,
involved in any of the decision making.
Sir, the president told governors on a telephone call that the way to deal with the protesters of police brutality and systemic racism like in Lafayette Square is that, quote, you have to get much tougher. You have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. These are terrorists. And he also talked about you on that call, sir. Here's what he said. He said, the Attorney General is here, Bill Barr, and we will activate Bill Barr and activate him strongly. Do you remember that call, Mr. Barr?
Yes, I do. But he wasn't talking about protesters. He was talking
Mr.
about
Barr,
rioters.
apparently the president believes that you can be activated to implement the president's agenda and dominate American people exercising First Amendment rights if they're protesting against him. But let's look at how you respond when the protesters are supporters of the president. On two separate occasions, after President Trump tweeted, "Liberate Michigan," to subvert stay-home orders to protect the public health of people in Michigan, protesters swarmed the Michigan Capitol carrying guns, some with swastikas, Confederate flags, and one even with a dark-haired doll with a noose around its neck. Are you aware that these protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded?
No.
You're not aware of that?
I was not aware of it.
Major protests in Michigan. You're the Attorney General, and you didn't know that the protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded. So obviously you couldn't be concerned about that.
Well, there are a lot of protests around the United States, and on June 1st, I was worried about the District of Columbia, which is federal.
In certain parts of the country, you're very aware of those, but when protesters with guns and swastikas and Confederate flags, excuse me, Mr. Barr, this is my time, and I control it. You are aware of certain kinds of protesters, but in Michigan, when protesters carry guns and Confederate flags and swastikas and call for the governor of Michigan to be beheaded and shot and lynched, somehow you're not aware of that. Somehow you didn't know about it, so you didn't send federal agents in to do to the president's supporters what you did to the president's protesters. In fact, you didn't put pepper balls on those protesters. So the point I'm trying to make here, Mr. Barr, that I think is very important for the country to understand, is that there is a real discrepancy in how you react as the Attorney General, the top cop in this country, when white men with swastikas storm a government building with guns. There is no need for the president to, quote, activate you because they're getting the president's personal agenda done. But when black people and people of color protest police brutality, systemic racism, and the president's very own lack of response to those critical issues, then you forcibly remove them with armed federal officers, pepper bombs, because they are considered terrorists by the president. You take an aggressive approach to Black Lives Matter protests, but not to right-wing extremists threatening to lynch a governor if it's for the president's benefit. Did I get it right, Mr. Barr?
I have responsibility for the federal government, and the White House is the seat of the executive
Mr. Barr, let me
branch,
just make it clear. You are supposed to
Michigan
represent
authorities
the
can
people
handle,
of the United States of America, not violate people's First Amendment rights. You are supposed to uphold democracy democracy and secure equal justice under the law, not violently dismantle certain protesters based on the president's personal agenda.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask unanimous consent to also introduce into the record a report from the MIT Election Data and Science Lab, which says that over the past 20 years, more than 250 million ballots have been cast by mail, and the fraud rate is 0.00006%.
Without objection.
Amazing, huh? Pramila Jayapal, everybody. Pramila Jayapal. So, yes. So, if anybody's looking for Bill Barr in the future, all you got to do is follow the slime trail. That's what you got to do. This man, the snake spit. Just follow the snake spit, and you'll get where Bill Barr is. This was so amazing, and come to find out, there was a plot to kidnap the Michigan governor, to kidnap her, put her on trial for treason, and then behead her, right? To execute her by a beheading. And there's Bill Barr saying that he's not aware of any of this. And then subsequently, after the plot was exposed and the people who were planning on doing it were exposed, then the president of the United States of America says, it was my Justice Department that exposed them. Your Justice Department said they didn't know about it. Your Justice Department said that they had not heard about this. They don't have TVs. They couldn't see the armed protesters in Michigan with swastikas and with black dolls with nooses around there. No, they couldn't see any of that. None of that happened. There was a kidnap plot. The Department of Justice under Bill Barr either didn't know about it or chose not to know about it. We'll never know because he is a liar. And a federal court judge told you that early on, when this man decided that he would pervert and distort what was in the Mueller report with regard to the president's law breaking. And then he writes this letter to Donald Trump last night. I don't know if you read it. It's in the homework if you want to read it. It's like erotic fiction. I bet it's perfumed and covered with kisses.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
This Attorney General should resign. He has not been an Attorney General representing the people of America. He has not been the people's attorney. He has been the hand of Donald Trump. And let's look at it. When we talk about the work of the United States Department of Justice, it is supposed to do justice. Well, when you have an Attorney General in Barr who allows Michael Flynn to withdraw his plea when he pled guilty to 2 counts that were violations of federal law, that's not justice. When you look at Bill Barr allowing Roger Stone and reducing the recommended sentence from, I believe it was 7 to 9 years, to something like 3 years, that's not justice. When you look then at Ahmaud Arbery and the fact that he was a young man, 25 years old, taking a jog and was cut down in life. And I've asked the Department of Justice and Bill Barr to investigate that and open an investigation into the police department there, the DA's office there, and a civil rights violation and investigate whether there was one. When you look at Breonna Taylor, a woman who's 26 years old, Chris, an EMT, today is International Nurses Day. This young woman had a dream of becoming a nurse, and she's sitting in her apartment when she is killed by the police who were at the wrong place trying to serve a warrant. There should be an investigation. That's not justice, what has happened for those 2 young people. There is not justice coming out of Bill Barr's Department of Justice. He should resign. He should let the career people who are there, who thankfully are still sticking in with it, let them do the work of justice. This man doesn't understand what it means to do justice. He does whatever is at the pleasure of Donald Trump. And he should resign.
And he did. And she's now the Vice President of the United States. Oh! That's justice. See right there, that would be justice. It is pretty amazing. But this letter that Bill Barr wrote, oh my God, it reads like Trump wrote it, except for the big words, except for the big ones. The word implacable is in the second paragraph. I don't think Trump knows what implacable means. And the word nadir, like the height of the nadir. No. But, your first thought in reading this letter is that Donald Trump wrote it if he did understand these big words. And then when you come to the conclusion that these words are words that Donald Trump doesn't know because he only knows the best words, he doesn't know the big words. You get the feeling that maybe Bill Barr was being held hostage when he wrote it, because it is so fawning. It is so. It really does read like like porn. It reads like erotic fiction that you would expect Mike Pence to write, or Mother. But this was written by Bill Barr, and it is just so bizarre. Now, I've never done a word search of tweets by Donald Trump ever. But I'm pretty sure he's never used the word implacable. And this is what I'm just going to read you a little tiny snippet, and then we'll move away from this bill. But I just want you to know the damage that has been done to our Department of Justice, all while we were out on the streets, all while we were trying to bring attention to the racial injustice in the Department of Justice in this country. They were like, we were trying to draw attention to, bad policing. We were trying to draw attention to the escalation of takedowns of innocent people, unarmed people. And they were moving everything all the way to the right, Well, it's so unbelievable. It's just so amazing, the damage that Bill Barr did to the judge. You thought Jeff Sessions was going to be bad. At least he had the sense to recuse himself because he was part of the collusion. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But anyway, Bill Barr writes, I'm greatly honored that you called on me to serve your administration and the American people. Once again, a retread. As Attorney General, I'm proud to have played a role in the many successes and unprecedented achievements you have delivered for the American people. Your record is all the more historic because you accomplished it in the face of relentless, implacable resistance. Your 2016 victory speech, in which you reached out to your opponents and called for working together for the benefit of the American people, it was immediately met by partisan onslaughts against you, in which no tactic, no matter how abusive and deceitful, was out of bounds. The nadir of this campaign was the effort to cripple, if not oust, your administration with frenzied and baseless accusations of collusion with Russia. Is he being held hostage, or is it Stockholm Syndrome? I don't know, where you learn to love the person who is holding. No, Bill Barr is smarter than Donald Trump, okay? And Bill Barr had a line, and the line he would not cross was undoing the will of the people. That's the line he would not cross, and that is why Bill Barr resigned, okay? That is why. Donald Trump was on the television trashing Bill Barr in public view, making it very well known that he was very, very unhappy with Bill Barr's, reluctance to go along with his BS about, the election was rigged and, taking it to court and then getting to the Supreme Court 2 times and both times being rejected roundly, soundly. And Bill Barr said, okay, jig is up, it's done, it's over. And no. Donald Trump wasn't done. And Donald Trump was telling Brian Kilmeade, Bill Barr didn't help me. Bill Barr isn't loyal enough.
Bill Barr, frankly, did the wrong thing. When they are saying things, making statements, and the press is purposely not reporting it, Bill Barr, I know, had an obligation to set the record straight, just like Robert Mueller set the record straight. He set it straight. A very bad thing was said, and it was a false article, a false statement, which, usually they are with the media. But this was a false statement. And Robert Mueller stood up and he said that is a false statement. And that was a great thing.
I don't know what he's talking about, but all you got to know is he's leaving too. Bye-bye. And so that brings us to the Biden administration. Now, the election is behind us. Okay, yesterday the Electoral College met in their respective states. They cast their ballots and they are transmitting them by mail to Congress. Congress will certify the results of those ballots on January 6th. Now, of course, the Trump administration is still talking about it ain't over. Newsmax is still talking about it ain't over. OAN is talking about it ain't over. And they're telling their audience it's not over. Steve Bannon is telling their audience not only is January 6th a non-date, right? You don't even have to pay attention to what's about to go on in Congress with the help of maybe Ron Johnson, a senator, or maybe Rand Paul, a senator, to contradict what the Electoral College voted for yesterday. But Bannon is on his stupid podcast telling people that Inauguration Day, January 20th, means nothing. January 20th.
Stephen Miller, the assistant to the president, lays it down. The only date in the Constitution is the 20th of January. And let me say something else.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happens on the 20th of January, if we have not had a full adjudication of this deal, is that the Speaker of the House that's chosen, and let's assume it's going to be Nancy Pelosi, becomes acting president until it gets sorted out. So the 20th is still an interim date.
Oh, my God. These are the dead enders. Aren't you under indictment? Don't you need to go to court and plead guilty for, defrauding the Trump supporters into supporting you? We build the wall. Weren't you arrested on a Chinese billionaire's yacht? Jesus, these people are unfreaking believable. They are just, they're endlessly riling up their base because it's a grift, okay? It's a grift. They just want money. And they know they can get money from the Trump supporters as long as they feed the Trump supporters a steady diet of Joe Biden will never be your president, no matter what. No matter what. Joe Biden is illegitimate. Joe Biden is bad. Joe Biden is this. Joe Biden is that. Now, I like Joe Biden. Don't get me wrong. I do like the guy. But can we at least admit that he is the least inspiring public speaker ever to mumble into a microphone? Can we just say that? Because yesterday, I mean, he addressed the nation, Joe Biden did. And I do like the guy. But I find myself, if I'm going to be honest, and that's all I know how to be, I'm praying to God that he doesn't have the Rona. He's coughing his head off, number one. And number two, you just sit there and you hang on to every word because you're saying, please, dear God, let him get through this somehow. I'm sure he's sharp as a tack. I'm sure he is, okay? He couldn't have won if he weren't. So just let's put Joe Biden behind a desk and get him working on things.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Bye-bye. See, this is the thing. I appreciate the way Biden is handling the transition. I really do. The idea that he is talking to the American people, the idea that he is showing up for us, the idea that his post-election appearances have been incredibly reassuring to the American people in this way. It means Trump is leaving. It means Trump is leaving. But it's time to put Joe Biden behind a desk and let him work on things. Let him sit down with Mitch McConnell. Let him wear out Mitch McConnell with his stories about Claymont and Scranton and Corn Pop and Malarkey or whatever. Just wear him down, wear him out. Okay? That's what because I tell you, I was watching it last night and the written words were fabulous because I looked at the transcript and I have the transcript right here of what Joe Biden said. But when you listen to it, it's time to sit down and, put him behind a desk.
The integrity of our elections remains intact. And now it's time to turn the page, as we've done throughout our history, to unite, to heal. As I said in this campaign, I will be president for all Americans. I'll work just as hard for those of you who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did. There's urgent work in front of us, getting this pandemic under control and getting the nation vaccinated against this virus, delivering immediate economic help so badly needed by so many Americans who are hurting today, and then building our economy back better than it ever was. In doing so, we need to work together to give each other a chance to lower the temperature. And most of all, we need to stand in solidarity as fellow Americans, to see each other, our pains, our struggles, our hopes, and our dreams. We're a great nation. We're good people. We may come from different places, hold different beliefs, but we share in common a love for this country, a belief in its limitless possibilities. For we, the United States of America, has always set the example for the world for a peaceful transition of power.
Oh. Rona? Anybody think Rona? I don't. It scared me. You know, when I used to listen to Barack Obama speak, I would feel like I could rely on Barack Obama to do anything. To do anything. And when I listen to Biden speak, I worry about whether or not he's going to make it to the end of the speech. I worry about whether or not he's going to make it to the end of the sentence. I worry about his health. I worry about his well-being. I worry, and believe me, I like him. I really like Joe Biden. I know Joe Biden is a decent man. I know Joe Biden is a smart man. I know Joe Biden is a respected man. I know Joe Biden is a person that, you know, you could work with, that you can get things done with. And so my only request now is to put him behind a desk or to go to the cloakroom, okay, with Mitch McConnell and just bore Mitch McConnell out of his resistance to giving money to the states and the localities, because now they're going to do a stimulus package, they say, but they had to split the baby, okay? This is like a Solomon moment. They had to split the baby in two because Mitch McConnell will not give up on giving liability protection to big box stores that want to put their employees in harm's way. They want protection against being sued for diseased work environments, unsafe work environments where COVID is rampant. Okay, I got a lot of emails yesterday about people who knew something about Dick in Ohio story and about Lowe's. And I don't know, they're just emails, and I can't verify, the veracity of these people or whether or not they ever worked there or they're reading it in a newspaper or this is an experience they had. I just don't know. But people are telling me that the policy for some companies is for their employees to stay out of it. Meaning if someone comes into a store and they're not wearing a mask, or if someone comes into a store and they're coughing and refuse to wear a mask, that the employees ought to stay out of it. Just stay out of it. Let them do their shopping. Let them go about their business and, just suck it up. And by suck it up, I mean suck up the COVID. So I will tell you, the Democrats decided to try and negotiate with Mitch McConnell on this liability issue because they don't think that taking away your right to have your grievances heard in a court of law is part of the American experience. So they don't want to give this liability protection to the most well-connected businesses in America. They just don't. And they don't understand what the incentive would be then for employers to make sure that the workplace was following guidelines laid out by the CDC. So they offered this instead. They said, all right, what if we started an indemnity account, okay? An account where money gets put into the account and it's indemnity insurance for these big businesses so that if they do get sued, the money that is won by the plaintiff comes out of the indemnity account. And Mitch McConnell's having none of that either. So they split the stimulus package into two damn bills. And the money is going to run out the day after Christmas. And here we are, the 15th of December, and they still can't agree. They still can't agree on what should be done. So my best guess is they're going to do a smaller package of about $748 billion, which will include unemployment benefits in addition to what the state is paying, right? Federal unemployment benefits, $300 for 16 weeks for people who, through no fault of their own, are sidelined by the COVID, right? And no direct payment, no check for $1,200 like we got in the CARES Act last time, right? Let me put Mitt Romney on. He'll explain what's in this particular package so you can hear.
Well, the good news is the people who can't make the rent get rental assistance into this bill.
Okay.
There's also tens of billions of dollars going into food assistance, food stamps, food banks, and so forth. So people who can't make the rent, people who don't have money for food are going to get help. We're also going to extend unemployment insurance at $300 a week on top of the state provision. So additional funds to those that are unemployed. The key, of course, is let's keep the cost of this from becoming backbreaking and adding huge debt to our national balance sheet and sending checks to people who don't need it. I know it's popular for people who like checks, but sending checks to people that don't need it doesn't strike us as high a priority as getting checks to people that are unemployed and who can't pay the rent and are looking for food.
Senator, good luck getting something done.
Yes, good luck getting something done, Senator. Good luck with that. So it's a $748 billion package. It does include new unemployment benefits. It has PPP, small business aid, which, will get raided again by the giant corporations. But it does have eviction protection, which is very important because in January alone, between 2.5 and 5 million people would be evicted without eviction, protection extended to them. It's got some good stuff in it, obviously. It's got money for education. It's got money for vaccine distribution. But it doesn't have any money for the states. So they're going to defund the police.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Basically, 2 weeks ago, we unveiled the framework, and now we are here today. And I know there's an awful lot of you thought that can't be done. You surely, to goodness, couldn't everything agreed on and put into a bill. Well, guess what? We did. There's the bill. And to make matters even better, we have two, because with every good negotiation, you want to make sure you've covered everything. And we did that.
No, you didn't.
So what we have before you is $908 billion, $748 in our emergency bills we have, and they're going to talk about basically our state and local liability. I want to talk about, first of all, this one, and this is the one we're so concerned, and both of them are very, very important to the American people. To everybody that's watching, first of all, make sure that you understand bipartisanship and compromise is alive and well in Washington. Contrary to what you've been hearing, we've proven that within a 1 month period, taking something that had not been on the table, talks were stalled completely, and taken to fruition to have a bill presented that basically what it does, it takes care of those who are unemployed. In an emergency, if you're unemployed, that's an emergency and you're running out of your unemployment check. We have 13 weeks or 16 weeks at $300 a week for that. Food assistance, we have nutrition assistance, food assistance, even going into our food banks, because we have non-traditional people who have probably never been in a food bank before that is needing food assistance now. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity. And we want to make sure that we had shelter assistance, rent, eviction notices. Basically, we wanted to make sure that that was in this piece of legislation. Small business debt relief, PPP program, is in that, and people will talk more extensively about that. Then we wanted to talk about student loan forbearance. So much pressure on our students right now, and that's in here. And then it goes on and on and on, as you can see, almost 600 pages. So what we've been able to do is put a $748 billion bill. We have a $908 billion package that we're still, but the emergency needs that we have and the assistance to the American people is something that we're going to continue to fight for.
All right, nice try, Joe Manchin. Nice try. Trying to straddle. You're going to get, like rug rash. Seriously, you're going to hurt yourself. Nobody's voted on this. The idea that they just found out that people need this assistance, what do you say, a month ago, nobody even knew? That's a lie. Sorry, Joe. That's not true. The House passed the HEROES Act in May. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That would be 7 months ago. So this idea that they didn't know about it, and now just a month ago they figured it out, and now they're ready to, that's politics. That's what Joe Manchin is doing there. He is being political to try to get this money out the door. In a weird way, I appreciate it. And in another weird way, I wish people would just tell the truth and stop politicking when people are lined up for hours at food banks. And you know damn well that we aren't going to get vaccinated until a year after the House passed the HEROES Act, like this May, right? So this May is what I have when I listen to that stuff. But, however, if they do pass this, if it does get bipartisan support as they're telling us it will, if that could happen, it would help. There's no question it would help, because it does have 16 weeks of unemployment benefits at $300 a week, in addition to the state benefit that people get when they file for unemployment. And that state benefit is also extended for an additional 16 weeks. So that's good. That's just base unemployment benefits and unemployment benefits for gig workers, contract workers, Uber drivers, people who work in the gig economy, which we do. But thank God we're not unemployed yet. It's got $300 billion in there for another round of PPP, which about a week ago, it was about 2 weeks ago now, a huge report in how badly that program was abused by the top 1% of companies, the largest 1% of companies who got most of the benefit. So there's that. There is food assistance in here. There's $82 billion for schools. There's $13 billion in food assistance. Now, here's the thing about food assistance that really peeves me. And, don't expect a Joe Manchin or a Jean Shaheen or a Mitt Romney to, stand up at a microphone and tell you this. But we already have a federal emergency management agency. It's called FEMA, because it's federal emergency management. And you would think that when the federal government, when the President of the United States sees hours-long lines at food banks, that they would release the money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's fund, and people would get money for food, because that is entirely doable by a president with the stroke of a pen. So just keep that in mind the whole time they're telling you, we're going to get food assistance out the door sooner or later. I mean, people will die of malnutrition before they get this thing done, right? But anyway, there's $13 billion in emergency food assistance in there. There's $25 billion in rental assistance, which is real money to help people pay the rent. There's also, the eviction moratorium. That would only be extended till the end of January. Last day of January, everybody gets evicted again unless they do something. There is $35 billion for healthcare providers that will help deploy the vaccine into people's arms, which is desperately needed. And there's $13 billion for farmers and ranchers and growers and fisheries. And the $25 billion in rental assistance actually alleviates some pressure on some renters. But, this stuff could be done with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And that's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. There is no $1,200 direct payment to anybody at all. And you do have Republicans that don't want to do this. Rick Scott, he writes op-eds in the National Review now, and don't fund the states, don't fund local. This guy was a freaking governor, and before that, he was a Medicare fraud. He really was. He had the biggest Medicare fraud in the history of Medicare at HCA hospitals. But okay, now instead of being like gubernatorial, and saying states really need help. I mean, they're being decimated because this president refused to do anything on COVID except tell people to, take hydroxychloroquine and drink bleach. He's like, don't fund the cities and the states. Don't. Why? Because he's all about liability protection for big business. And that's what's in the second bill, the smaller bill that Manchin had. That little bill that he had, that has liability protection for the biggest corporations. And it's attached to the money for the locals, attached to state money. Now, if you don't give the states money, and they've been supporting their public hospitals and food and rental assist and all this by themselves, which they have, they will have to lay off firefighters and EMTs and sanitation workers and police officers. So who's defunding the police, Mitch?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Here's what runs out between Christmas and New Year's: expanded unemployment assistance, an eviction moratorium, extra paid family leave, and a pause in student loan payments. Now, a bipartisan congressional group has split its $908 billion relief package into two proposals. Here's what it looks like. One bill would be a $748 billion proposal. That includes money for small businesses, jobless benefits, and money for vaccine distribution. Now, that other package includes the two big sticking points: $160 billion for state and local aid and liability protection for businesses. Now, states aren't waiting for help, by the way, because they simply can't afford to. Maine is sending one-time payments to certain jobless residents. New Mexico is giving grants to small businesses. And Kentucky is helping its low-income residents pay their utility bills. But states face big pain ahead. Most cannot run deficits like the federal government can, right? They'll need more money to plug the pandemic holes in their budgets. That's how they're going to keep teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other state workers on the job.
Right. And if they don't get the state money, if they don't get the local money, then the Republicans will be defunding the police. They will be defunding firefighters. They will be defunding school teachers, EMTs, sanitation workers, transit workers, you name it. Mitch doesn't care. Mitch couldn't care less. Mitch isn't interested at all in anybody's problems. Mitch is only interested in helping his donors keep protection in place get protection in place for them so that they can make you go to a COVID-infested environment. You get COVID and too bad for you. You're on your own. I mean, these are the same people that want to get rid of, health care in the middle of a pandemic. What makes you think that they're interested in having the sanitation workers show up to keep... I mean, why not add cholera to COVID? Why not? Why not? But the Democrats proposed an indemnity fund. They said, hey, let's just create an indemnity fund. We'll reimburse any, businesses who are sued over COVID issues and lose. And lose. Can you imagine? But the Republicans dismissed that, and they said, no, we're not going to help the cities. We're not going to help the states. We're not going to do anything for the firefighters, for the EMTs, for the public hospitals. We're not going to... It's just unbelievable because he has been paid by his donors to get them liability protection from lawsuits. It's unbelievable because they don't... I mean, this is what happens when you don't want to do the right thing, but instead you're willing to spend millions of dollars on lobbyists and fundraisers for people to do the wrong thing for you. Don't you think it would be easier if they just did the right thing and they put the millions of dollars that they spend on lobbyists into creating safe work environments for another couple of months? It makes no sense. But that's who they are. That's what big business is, and that's what they want, and that's what their sticking point is, and that's why we don't have money going to the states. That's why. And, of course, the $748 billion, well... Remember, Steve Mnuchin clawed back $500 billion from the first CARES Act. And so this bill that the 748 represents, it's about $248 billion for us. because all they're doing is reappropriating money that's already been appropriated, but clawed back. Some game they play. You want to talk about corruption and a deep state and American people not getting their fair share and who's being forgotten and who's being remembered and who's being taken care of and who's not. Here it is, laid out for you in one little radio segment or TV segment, however you're doing it. Lisa in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hello.
Hi. I think the liability protection is probably not just for Mitch's donors, but also for the GOP itself. Because when you look at it, they are also an employer. How many employees did they expose during some of these super spreader events they've done? Not to mention their customers, the people that come to the events.
No, that's not this.
No?
No.
They don't bear any responsibility for the people that work for the GOP?
No, that's a different conversation. This liability.
Oh, I know. I know it is.
This liability protection is for business, not for government.
But the people that work those events, are they paid by businesses? Who pays them? Isn't that a business aspect?
So
because it's not just people speaking.
Are you talking about when Trump goes into a city or a state and has a super spreader event?
Yeah, the people that work for it, the interns.
Okay, so Donald Trump is supposed to pay for those people, and he doesn't. He stiffs them. He still owes money to the states for these super spreader events that he hosted. So, those people are contracted by the state to work these events for the campaign, and the campaign then stiffs the state, and the state's got to, come out of pocket and pay these people.
So what about the people? Doesn't the GOP actually have employees to the people that they pay that work for them?
You're confusing, you're confusing business like Lowe's and Home Depot or whatever, with government work.
Okay, so can their interns sue them for the exposure that they've had?
Their interns? What are you talking about now?
Well, there's people that work within the GOP, aren't there, that just do services for them. I can't imagine that when they deal with their normal vendors and everyone else, that these people haven't been exposed to them, that, when they interact with people for these events, PR people that handle the buses, anyone that they interact with.
So those people are working for the campaign.
Okay, so can the campaigns be held liable for it?
I don't know.
Well, I have to wonder, because it seems like, if there's anyone that would be a nightmare employer, it'd be that.
But this is not that. I mean, I don't know what to tell. David in Missouri.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Yeah, I left a message on Kamala Harris's office to see if she'd get Joe to declassify the Mueller report.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, maybe be saying this on your program. Maybe some more people will call. And if the Republicans don't like that vinegar, I mean, Barack tried honey for 8 years and it got him nowhere. So maybe a little vinegar would work.
Well, I don't know that, intimidating the GOP into, being bipartisan is going to ever work because all they're doing is biding their time until we get another Republican president, right? All these people that worked in this administration, they came from these white shoe law firms. You want to talk about the revolving door? Here's how it works. The people that infiltrated the DOJ, that Bill Barr hired, that all these agencies hired, okay, they came from law firms. So now they go back to their law firms, okay? And they sit there until we have another Republican president, and then they go back and get a great job at the new Republican administration. That's the revolving door. That's how that works.
Right.
Now, the way to get progress in this country is for Georgians to vote early, and they can today. Early voting started yesterday in Georgia for these 2 Senate seats, and give the Senate to the Democrats so we can actually see some progress. As far as declassifying, the president can declassify anything.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All righty, everybody. You know it's winter. It's winter time. This is our winter pledge drive for Free Speech TV. It is going on throughout this week, and then we're done. So if we reach our goal at the end of this week, we will get an additional $10,000 to meet the big number that we have in mind that we need to support Free Speech TV for the winter months. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are actual human beings, about 16 of them, that work in Denver, Colorado, that are responsible for doing everything, getting us on the air, the content that is provided for this show, mailing out things that, you order. I mean, it's just, there's a whole lot of people. There's an accountant, there's, and we do it without taking any corporate money, and we do it without taking any government money. And so we rely on our viewers like you, to keep this thing afloat. Now, you've been doing it for 25 years, and that's beautiful. And the people that match your donations, they're longtime supporters, longtime viewers, longtime activists that stand behind Free Speech TV and put their money where my mouth is all the time. And so you have to give, a shout out to Jeffrey, and people like him that just support what we do by matching what you do, and it's just incredible. So if you are watching us on DirecTV channel 348, or if you're watching us on the Dish Network 9415, or you're watching us on the website at freespeech.org, it's because there are human beings that actually do this. Now, I don't take a salary from Free Speech, and we don't, again, we just care a great deal about a non-corporate, non-political, meaning we don't do what this party wants or that party wants. We just talk the truth. That's all we do. We get you through the tough times. We get you through the elections. We get you, to a place where we can have hope again, where we can, insist that the forgotten people of this country need to be remembered, is basically what it is. So this is for the people, the little people. And if you feel like supporting that, that would be great. All you got to do is dial 877-378-8669 right now, 877-378-8669, or if you're more digital, go to freespeech.org and pledge a little something for the winter pledge drive. There are premiums, meaning if you do $240, we'll send you a Free Speech TV hoodie, right? If you can do $75, a Randi Rhodes Show mug, if that's what you choose from the gifts that we have, to say thank you to you for helping us stay free. Free of influence. All right. Roger in New York.
Hey, Randy, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. So I was just thinking about how the suspicious timing and sequence of events around Chris Krebs being fired, then they haven't even been able to measure the degree to which we were just attacked by the Russians. The State Department, the Treasury, the Department of Homeland Security. Call me paranoid, but I always thought Trump and company was working directly with the Kremlin.
The idea that Trump's entire goal was to destroy democracy and that he almost succeeded, except for, the Supreme Court putting their foot down and saying, not right now. Maybe later, but not right now. Today is not the day. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I can't throw the election to you this time. But listen, that's why we need the declassified Mueller report. That's why we need Donald Trump to stand trial for his obstruction of justice and meet the bar of justice and testify and give depositions and interrogatories and the whole 9 yards. But it is creepy that, this guy who stands on that wall and created an entire department to keep our elections free from foreign interference, especially from Russia, is fired, and then we're hacked by Russia.
Yeah. I mean,
with a president who is the most anti-democratic president we have ever seen come down the pike. His version of neo-fascism was almost, if Trump wasn't such an idiot, if he wasn't such a chaotic, moron, it could have succeeded. It really could have.
The one thing that we know that Putin and the Kremlin wants is the destruction of
democracy.
The United States.
Well,
he
of
is
democracy.
the perfect unwitting candidate just to.
I don't know that he's
set us all against
I
each other.
don't know that he's unwitting. I think he was a witting accomplice.
Yeah, I shouldn't use that word. He is totally witting. He knows what he's doing,
right.
and if no matter what happens at this point, he's going to go on to just continue to separate, to try to separate us racially, and to pit us against each other, and it's just horrible. It's horrible, but I'm so glad that Biden and Harris have won, and it just looks like we're entering into a new era, and I really hope that's the way it's going to be, because we have a lot of work to do.
Well, it depends on whether or not we can win these 2 Senate seats in Georgia. I swear to God, that's all
eyes on Georgia.
It is
right now.
That's how on a fulcrum we are. Do you know? We could go either way right now. We could go completely.
Did you watch Biden and Ossoff? And did you just watch that? He just spoke out there in Georgia. It was fantastic.
Oh,
just
was it?
beautiful.
No. I was on
Beautiful.
I'm actually doing a show. I can't watch television.
No, of course.
I'm on the television. I can't watch the television. Yeah, but I can't.
Randi, you are so beautiful, and your people are so wonderful. Thank you so much for everything.
Okay. I don't know why people think that when I'm doing. Maybe I make it look so easy, but when it looks very easy, it's really very hard. And while you do television, you don't get to watch television, even if it's C-SPAN, which most people don't consider to be television. Just saying. But for that caller, Fox News did a poll, I swear to God, and 2/3 of America, believe it or not, 2/3 of us feel hopeful about the future now that Biden is the president-elect. So that's like an amazing number. 59% are relieved that it's over. 67% feel more hopeful now that Biden is the president. There's some interesting numbers in here. 58% say they will give Biden a chance. 41% say never going to happen. They're never going to give Biden a chance. And so, like I've always said this, you're always going to have about 1/3 of this country. Right now, it's a little more than 1/3. It's 41%, but you're always going to have about 1/3 of this country or 35% of this country that are just so shot through with propaganda and racist beliefs and hatred and loathing and frustration, which is a big part of it too, that this government just refuses to see them, refuses to. I mean, we say things like, this is my thing, okay? We say things like the Rust Belt and accept that that's part of American life. Why the F do we have a Rust Belt? And why are we so willing to accept that? See, and that's what makes people so frustrated. And as long as there's a Republican Party, they will continue to make people frustrated. Because the more frustration, the more likely they will get another shot at this. And that's how this works. That's politics. And it goes around and around. Now, the thing about Mitch McConnell is he's 87 years old, and he looks every bit of it. He's got the face he deserves. But he's 87 years old, and he's just beginning another 6-year term. Okay? You do the math. You can have a 93-year-old Mitch McConnell? I don't think so. I don't think so. But they have a stake in keeping their people angry. Anger is the grift. It is the actual grift. When people are angry, they will give money to a demagogue. They will give money to somebody who lies to them and tells them, you know, the forgotten man, and I'm going to do, and then literally trashes the economy. Over and over again. Bush did it. Trump is going to be the first president since World War II to leave the presidency with less jobs on the day he leaves than he had on the day he began, for whatever reason. I know a lot of people go, but the pandemic. Well, he could have done something about that when we had 15 people, remember? 15 people. Could have done something about that. Instead, what did he do? He left people on a cruise ship parked off of the coast of the United States because he didn't want the numbers to go up, okay? He didn't want testing because he didn't want the numbers to go up. This was a moron. So I'm saying, if he wasn't so chaotic and moronic and self-serving and narcissistic, this neo-fascist mode of governance could have succeeded. That's what Mitch McConnell knows. That's what Ron Johnson knows. That's what a lot of Republicans are banking on.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Could this be the week that the Senate finally agrees to another COVID relief bill?
We've heard this every day for months, haven't we?
Hope is now pinned on this bipartisan, bicameral effort led by Senators Joe Manchin and Susan Collins. The pair essentially took one large bill, split it into two, and they're crossing their fingers.
We're not going home until it's done.
One measure includes everything that both parties agree on, including billions of dollars for businesses, schools, and unemployment.
The second bill covers liability protections for businesses and provides $160 billion to help state and local governments.
Congress has until Friday to hammer out a deal and get it to the president for his signature if they want to get something done before the end of the year.
The question is McConnell going to go for it?
Do you have any kind of promise or agreement from Mitch McConnell to even put the $160 billion on the floor for state and local governments?
No.
Also, McConnell looks like he's going to get what he wants, which is a slimmed down version of Nancy Pelosi's original $2 trillion plus bill.
Current deal does not include another round of stimulus checks.
So this is not a stimulus bill. It's just a Band-Aid. It's not going to go toward trying to put the country's economics on the right track. That business looks like it's going to be held over for the next Congress, and we'll see, based on the outcome of the Georgia elections, who's in charge of that Congress.
That's the question. Who's in charge of the next Congress? Are we going to do more of this do-nothing Senate? Or are we going to make progress for the American working people? Hello, everybody. So they're telling us maybe we'll have a stimulus bill. We're on the brink of a stimulus package. And it seems like there might be some direct payments, some stimulus checks that might be included. I doubt it'll be the $1,200 that each and every working American got last time. Now they're talking about the low bargain basement price of $600 for people who qualify for a direct payment. But we'll see. We have to wait and see. But, you know, it's going through the grinder of Mitch McConnell, which means it ain't going to be all that stimulating. It's all going to depend on the next Senate and who wins the race in Georgia. I swear to God, it all comes down to Georgia. Georgia on my mind. So, listen, this is not going to be that stimulating. This is going to be a Band-Aid. This is going to be a patch. For those of you who are computer-oriented, it's just a patch for a bad program. So think of it like decaf, because it won't be that stimulating. Think of it like, all right, for you Altacacas, Sanka. Remember Sanka? You don't remember Sanka? All right, think of it like O'Doul's, alcohol-free alcohol. It's pretty much what we got here. So here we have Mitch McConnell carefully going through any stimulus bill to do as much as he can to take the stimulus part out so that he can reserve that stimulus part that's still needed for his effort at giving a get-out-of-jail-free card to the criminal corporations in this country who refuse to give their employees PPE, who refuse to make sure that people that are coming into their businesses are masked, who refuse to do anything to protect their employees from having to work in a COVID-infested, place. And, listen, here's the thing. I looked at how many, and so, yesterday, Katie Porter was talking about what a criminal enterprise this Republican Senate has been. I mean, they've done almost nothing, but the things that they have done have been like give get out of jail free cards to his buddies, to give tax breaks to his donors and his donors' friends. Do you know, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. It's like 8 million Americans have fallen into poverty, and they didn't even fall. They didn't even fall into poverty. It's like poverty just reached up like the Chiller Theater hand and just pulled them down. People were willing to work. People were willing to have 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Now they have no jobs through no fault of their own. All because Mitch McConnell backed a president who was willing to commit second-degree mass murder. So you talk about the criminal class. I mean, this is unbelievable. So no pandemic relief bill is going to be perfect, but no pandemic bill would be a disaster. So Katie Porter explained it all, as she normally does, when she was saying what Mitch McConnell is doing to us.
Let's talk about what is going to expire if a relief bill doesn't happen in the next few days. There's pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, pandemic unemployment assistance, paid leave protection, renter eviction moratorium, home foreclosure and eviction moratorium, student loan deferment, penalty-free retirement withdrawal, unspent COVID relief funds, use of PPP funds, employee retention credit, employee payroll tax deferral, suspended Medicaid sequester cuts, airline and national security loans. That is a lot of things that affects a lot of Americans.
Millions.
When you're looking at all that is out there, that is on the line, I'm wondering, where's the urgency in Congress? Why do we keep hearing talking and talking and talking and not voting? Why haven't we seen a bill come to the floor yet?
Well, look, Katie, Democrats have voted. The House has voted. We voted back in June or July for the HEROES package, and we've continued to want to negotiate, and we've stayed in session and tried to reach a compromise. And I want to be clear. Many Republicans are willing to compromise. Many Senate Republicans are willing to compromise. This isn't about the dollar figure of relief. We all understand that we could do a little bit less now and do the rest to come. This is about Senator McConnell holding out, trying to basically give a license to kill to big corporations that engage in reckless behavior to endanger workers and employees and Americans. So we all, Republicans and Democrats, agree there's a potential to move forward here to continue those programs if he will drop this ridiculous and I think corrupt attempt to try to put these imaginary needs of big corporations ahead of the needs of the American people, which are very, very real and, as you point out, are extremely urgent.
So basically, Mitch McConnell is yet again behaving like a criminal lawyer, meaning a lawyer who acts on behalf of the criminal. You know, he wants to give a get-out-of-jail-free card for his buddies that are willing to entertain the notion of giving, us regular schmucks a chance to collect money because we have been pulled down into, poverty because we cannot work, okay? And the crappy stimulus bill that the Republicans want is crappy because, A, it's a Republican, led effort, and B, he is literally holding out $160 billion for cities and states so that they don't have to lay off firefighters and EMTs and police officers and sanitation workers and school teachers so that he can give companies that want to behave like criminals, meaning violate the rights of their workers to work in a disease-free environment, a pass. Now, there are only, just in case you were wondering, is there an epidemic of pandemic lawsuits? Is something going on that we don't know? Actually, no. 8 months, 9 months into this pandemic, lawsuits related to COVID-19 exposure, they are few and far between. Want a number? Want an actual number? Here it is, 383. Right. There are 383 lawsuits in the entire country related to COVID exposure. And you know what? Most of them are the ones that made it, they are the grossest of abuse. Really disgusting. Meatpacking plants, places where they just absolutely refuse to allow their employees to wear masks. They won't allow them to. I mean, just really, they're just shielding bad actors from accountability is what Mitch McConnell is there to do. It's sad and it's sick because people are literally hurting.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You know, the stakes couldn't be higher. Millions of Americans need help, and they've needed it for months. Families face hunger as they choose between paying bills and putting food on the table. And I want you to look at these pictures. This is Texas. This is San Antonio. The San Antonio Food Bank held a food drive Tuesday to feed 11,000 families for the holidays. This was the largest food bank drive the San Antonio Food Bank has ever hosted.
God.
And we have seen images like this repeated across the country. Time is literally running out to keep millions from falling off a benefits cliff. Here's what runs out between Christmas and New Year's: expanded unemployment assistance, an eviction moratorium, extra paid family leave, and a pause in student loan payments. Now, all of this coming to an end as job growth has slowed. First-time unemployment claims are rising as the pandemic devastates the labor market anew.
853,000 new claims for unemployment benefits. 853,000. It's nearly 1 million people. This is exactly where we were when we transitioned from the last Republican president to Obama. Okay, exactly where we were. And thank God we had a Senate and a House at that time that would pass a stimulus package. And in case you can't remember, no Republicans voted for the stimulus package after they ran this economy off the cliff last time. And no, it wasn't a pandemic. It was deregulation. It was literally letting the banks do whatever they wanted with you. And I mean, so here we are again with idiot boy Mitch McConnell, this guy who practices criminal law, meaning on behalf of the criminals, in the U.S. Senate. And you want to know what the U.S. Senate is doing today? Do you know what they're doing today? This is so twisted and so sick. I mean, the media literally was applauding. Although I will say Anderson Cooper and I were applauding really slow. The slow clap. They were applauding because Mitch McConnell finally admitted that Joe Biden was the president-elect of the United States.
6 weeks ago, the Americans voted in this year's general election.
We did.
The legal and constitutional processes have continued to play out since then.
What?
Yesterday, electors met in all 50 states. So as of this morning, our country has officially a president-elect and a vice president-elect. Many millions of us had hoped the presidential election would yield a different result. But our system of government has processes to determine who will be sworn in on January the 20th. The Electoral College has spoken. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years.
Oh,
I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time.
Okay, shut up, go back into your shell. Go stimulate something, because it certainly isn't going to be the economy. But honestly, this was just, and they were applauding. I mean, people in the media, some of them were mourning, right? And they were, Newsmax had to have a meeting. No, I'm not kidding. They had to have a meeting to decide whether or not to call Joe Biden the president-elect, because Newsmax wasn't willing to do it.
There are people right now who are out there calling Joe Biden the president-elect. Now, at this point, there is some political and some historical justification for them to do so at this point. I personally feel they're wrong. I'll go into that in just a moment. But first, the Electoral College, basically in the state capitals, they went through the votes, and this is what it looked like. It was all virtual because of COVID. And they did their thing, and it looks like at this point he's got 270 electoral votes, plus Joe Biden does.
They don't want to do it. So Newsmax, you know, just got sued. They got sued because Joe DeGeneva threatened the life of Chris Krebs on Newsmax. Okay, Joe DeGeneva said that Chris Krebs was a moron and that he should be drawn and quartered and hung or something, right? Shot. I don't know how he planned to commit the murder. But Newsmax got sued. So now they have a meeting and they go, all right, you know what? We're going to have to call Joe Biden the president-elect. This was a meeting at a media organization. Really? You have to meet about that? That is so freaking disgusting, okay? These people are bizarre and they are dangerous. They are literally dangerous. So you know what the Senate decided to do today? Ron Johnson, I don't know what his problem is. I know everybody suspects Ron Johnson takes foreign money and that the foreign country that he takes money from is Russia. I have no proof or non-proof that that is true or false. But I will tell you this. He suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, okay, where he is a deranged human being who believes Donald Trump can beat this thing called elections. He can beat it. He can overcome it. He could be a dictator. He could be the autocrat. So today, Ron Johnson is literally holding hearings on the fraudulent election. Seriously. On the election fraud that he suspects has happened to feed this angry, violent base that they call Trump supporters. Okay, this is really crazy. It's really sick. So, of course, it's a committee. And while Ron Johnson is the chairman of it, because when the Republicans have the majority, they get all the chairmanships of all the committees. But there are Democrats on the committee, and they do get to call witnesses, okay? So here's the opening statement from Senator Gary Peters of Michigan.
Despite the title of today's hearing, there were no widespread election irregularities that affected the final outcome. These claims are false, and giving them more oxygen is a grave threat to the future of our democracy. Now, I understand the chairman's desire to ensure our elections run smoothly, and I agree that we need to restore faith and trust in our election process. But I'm concerned that today's hearing will do more harm than good by confusing a few anecdotes about human error with the insidious claims the president has aired.
I just cannot believe they're not going to let it go. They just won't let it go. I mean, and Mitch McConnell, where was he the last 5 weeks finally? And we have to applaud him now for doing the obvious thing, for doing the American thing, for doing the Democratic thing with a small d, for doing, the constitutional thing. We now have to thank the Senate Majority Leader for acknowledging that Joe Biden was voted for by the entire country's electoral college votes and prevailed. I mean, what the F, people?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Mistakes do happen in elections, but there is a difference between a clerk making an error that gets caught and corrected during routine audits and calling the entire election fraudulent or stolen when there is no evidence just because you do not like the outcome. Amplifying these obviously false narratives about fraud or irregularities corrodes public trust. It threatens national security, and it weakens our democracy and our standing around the world. Every time the president or his followers make these false claims, they destabilize our relationships with our allies and allow authoritarian adversaries to undercut American democratic leadership around the globe. Democracy and a free society are not guaranteed. We have seen democracies around the world crumble because of similar words and actions. When executives abuse their power, when political leaders work to stifle the free press, and when they delegitimize the principle of one person, one vote, it puts our country on a dangerous path towards authoritarianism.
Senator Gary Peters, everybody, from Michigan, Democrat, and that was his opening statement in Ron Johnson's show trial today about the fraudulent elections. They're actually spending time having hearings about fraudulent elections because at 1 o'clock this morning, Donald Trump was tweeting at Mitch McConnell. He wrote, "Mitch, 75 million votes," in all caps, "a record for a sitting president. By a lot. Too soon to give up." Donald, 75 million votes are as good as zero if your opponent gets 75 million and one vote. The Cleveland Browns cannot claim that they won Monday night's game because they scored 42 points. The Baltimore Ravens got 47 points. And while 42 points is a lot of points for a football game, it's more like a basketball score. 47 points beats 42 points, and therefore the Ravens won. My favorite part of this tweet is the Republican Party must finally learn to fight people who are angry, because he's rage tweeting at them and telling them to be angry. The past 6 weeks he's been rage tweeting. He has been working up these conspiracy nuts into a freaking frenzy. And they're dangerous. They're dangerous. So Ron Johnson replies to the opening statement of the Democrats that said, you know, what you're doing is really, disgusting. You are confusing a very small portion, which is about 35% of this country. You're confusing them. You're making them believe that there was massive voter fraud, even though you've been unable to present any evidence in courts of law. You have been unable to convince any judge to do anything to grant your relief, which is to throw out 20 million Americans' votes. The Supreme Court said no twice, okay? Wisconsin said, you have no merit to your case. Michigan, no merit to your case. Get out of our courts. What's wrong with you people? They're lucky they didn't get sanctioned. Then they should, these lawyers that brought these fraudulent claims. This Sidney Powell woman needs to be disbarred. Rudy Giuliani needs to be disbarred. These are disgusting, unbelievably un-American people. And Ron Johnson has the nerve to sit there. He's the one that arranged for this to happen today. You know who his main witness was? It was Ken Starr. And you know what Ken Starr testified to? The gloriousness of the United States Constitution. I mean, he alleged no fraud. But Ron Johnson said, I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing.
I don't see anything dangerous about evaluating information, about doing legitimate congressional oversight.
Oh my
Nothing
God.
dangerous about that whatsoever. As I said in my last hearing, closed-mindedness is a real problem for a lot of the issues we face today.
Yeah, the problem that America has is they're closed-minded. That's the problem. I'm just asking questions. I just keep this in mind when I play you the next witness, okay? Keep this in mind. This is the Department of Homeland Security Oversight Committee. This is the DHS, Homeland Security Oversight Committee, that Ron Johnson is in charge of, okay? Now, the Democrats had the good sense to call the Republican Chris Krebs, who was fired from a joint organization that monitors intrusions from...
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
the citizens of the United States of America that are responsible for executing this sacred democratic institution of elections are being threatened on a daily basis. I mean, you name it, whether it's emails, whether it's phone calls, whether it's people showing up at your house. This is not America I recognize, and it's got to stop. We need everyone across the leadership ranks to stand up. I think I would appreciate more support from my own party, the Republican Party, to call this stuff out and end it.
Yeah.
We got to move on. We have a president-elect in President-elect Biden. We have to move on. These officials that are Republicans, look at Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, Gabriel Sterling, Jeff Duncan. These are Republicans that are putting country over party. They're being subjected to just horrific threats as a result. This is not America.
So there's a nice young Republican man named Chris Krebs who was fired from his job because he wouldn't put his party over his country, and certified that there was no interference in our election and that what we had here was one of the most secure elections in the history of the United States of America. And Donald Trump is rage tweeting at firing guys like him, and rage tweeting at Mitch McConnell and other Republicans like Ron Johnson in the Senate that we need to keep up the fight. And let me show you what this then produces, okay? Obviously you've got the psychos over at Newsmax.
Hey, it is not over.
It's not over.
It's not, actually. You can look it up in the Constitution. We'll see what happens, folks. Stand by for Stinchfield. Hey, it's tough. It's got a tough fight. Bleak, but he's been in tough spots before. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, as if there's another outcome that is possible in our democratic system of government. Kayleigh McEnany, the McEnany. Okay, she's doing it too. From the podium, from the White House. Okay, this is really vile. She was asked about whether or not Joe Biden would get the same courtesy that was extended to Donald Trump himself when there was a transition from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. You know, what happened back then was the Obama administration gave the green light for Donald Trump to begin confirmation hearings on cabinet members that he had selected for himself. You know, Michael Flynn, Don McGahn, all the people that are now gone and committed crimes, apparently. But Kayleigh McEnany was asked whether or not Donald Trump would extend the same courtesy to Joe Biden, and her answer was that Joe Biden's cabinet is still a hypothetical. I swear to God.
Question about confirmations of Biden's cabinet picks. President Trump had the benefit of the Senate starting hearings and starting the process before he was inaugurated in January of 2017. Does the president oppose the Senate taking up Joe Biden's nominees before the inauguration?
I think that's a hypothetical, and he won't get ahead of that activity actually happening. But he has taken all statutory requirements necessary to either ensure a smooth transition or a continuation of power.
A continuation of power? He lost. He lost. It's over. He lost. And this is eventually what happens when you're on the street, right? So far, we've seen people, testify under oath in the auspicious, Senate. We've seen Kayleigh McEnany at the podium in the briefing room at the White House. But on the street, it sounds more like this.
We will never back down to the satanic, pedophile, globalist, New World Order and their walking dead, reanimated corpse, Joe Biden. And we will never recognize him. President Trump had zero connection to Russians, no proof, 4 years of investigation. With the Bidens, it's open and shut. So I don't know who's going to the White House in 38 days, but I sure know this. Joe Biden is a globalist, and Joe Biden will be removed one way or another.
Not only is that inciting violence, but that's advocating for the assassination of a president-elect. I mean, the seditious nature of these deranged syndrome sufferers, there has to be, I mean, please call your doctor, do a ZocDoc, do a, some sort of a Zoom call with your, find out what the hell is wrong with you before you actually kill someone or cause somebody to get killed. That's what Chris Krebs was decently testifying about. The amount of violence that has, now we've already had shootings and stabbings and other things, we've already had plots about governors being kidnapped, tried for treason, and killed. We have people showing up armed at secretaries of state's homes when they are putting Christmas decorations up with their children. This has got to end. This is just an amazingly sick and twisted ploy that Donald Trump has to raise money. See, in the end, this is just a grift. That's what this is. Donald Trump is telling his supporters, literally, they must support him financially for like the rest of his life. He's raising money on this. That is what is happening.
What do you see, for the next, obviously it's impossible to think 4 years out these days, but what do you imagine his post-presidential life to be?
I don't know. I think it's going to be continual grift and grievance. He's going to be trying to raise money and trying to continue, being the center of attention because he needs to be the center of attention psychologically. So he's going to keep, stirring people up out there and probably trying to hold rallies and trying to raise money. And
without having the presidential seal, though,
it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
And there's going to be the grievance aspect. And that grievance aspect is going to be, he's going to his dying breath, he's going to claim that this election was fraudulently taken from him. And then you're going to hear more. If he gets prosecuted, we've seen reports by the New York Times most recently that the New York County District Attorney's Office is ramping up its criminal investigation of somebody, I guess maybe the Trump organization, maybe the president himself. And, he's just going to be a continual font of grievance until, forever. Until forever.
That's what I'm telling you. He is going to get his supporters to support him financially forever. Forever. And if there are criminal charges brought by the Manhattan District Attorney, that's what George Conway there was referencing. If there are criminal charges brought by the Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr., Donald Trump will fundraise off of that too. Now, Letitia James yesterday prevailed in court yesterday. She has she's got civil lawsuits pending against the Trump organization. All right. And she won a court decision yesterday that now requires Donald Trump to provide her office, she's an attorney general, her office with documents that she needs in order to figure out whether or not Donald Trump committed bank fraud, insurance fraud, and tax fraud, meaning he devalued the amount of his property, the value of his property for tax purposes, and inflated the value of his properties for the purpose of insurance coverage and bank loans, right? This all comes from the testimony of Michael Cohen. Now, those are civil investigations. But at any time, just so you know, she can make a criminal referral. If she finds crimes, she can make a criminal referral. So it's not really a big mystery about whether or not Donald Trump will end up, in court, either in civil court or criminal court. He is already an unindicted co-conspirator in the Michael Cohen money laundering case with regard to paying off the mistresses and funneling the money through law firms, which even Sean Hannity got live on the air. I mean, he stumbled into it and said it out loud. Whoops. But he's going to fundraise. He is going to literally tell the Alex Jones audience, the Newsmax audience, the OAN audience, the lunatic fringy audience in this country, the 35% of Americans who can barely get by and are being infected by a virus that he refused to acknowledge or come up with a national containment plan for. Hence, we now need a stimulus package. We need both a national containment plan and a stimulus package. But he's rage tweeting at the Senate Majority Leader, and his sycophants want martial law.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Folks, you know, you all did something extraordinary in November. You voted in record numbers. You voted to improve the lives of every Georgian. And you voted as if your life depended on it. Well, guess what? Now you're going to have to do it again. Oh! Come January 5th, you got to vote in record numbers again.
Again.
Because yes, the lives of every Georgian still depend on what you're doing. Yes, you still need to vote as if your life depends on it, because it does. And guess what? You don't have to wait until January 5th to vote. You can vote starting now. Early vote has begun. There's no one, that's not one reason here why you should wait to vote. So don't wait. Let me hear how many of you folks have already voted. How many of you are going to vote today? And how many of you have a plan to vote? Get your family members to vote. A friend, a neighbor, a coworker. Let me hear it. We got to vote.
Dude, it does come down to Georgians. It comes down to one state's special election on the 5th of January. That will determine whether or not the United States of America can make progress, can alleviate this pandemic, can fix the economy, can create jobs, can do an infrastructure deal, can do a green energy plan. So whether or not Joe Biden can even get his cabinet members confirmed, yes, it all ends up in Mitch McConnell's house. It all goes right there, and he alone decides what comes to the floor. He and his Republican majority, as it stands now, may or may not confirm Pete Buttigieg for Transportation Secretary. That's who Joe Biden has picked. Or Jennifer Granholm for Energy Secretary. That's who Joe Biden has picked. Now, that may seem weird on its face, that Jennifer Granholm, the former governor of Michigan, and Pete Buttigieg, who will always be Mayor Pete, because most of us have never learned to pronounce his last name properly. Buttigieg. I had to write it phonetically when I first met him, right? But think about Pete Buttigieg working at Transportation on Infrastructure, and Jennifer Granholm, who was there during the automobile bailout. She was the governor of Michigan in a heavy auto industry state during the auto bailout and the Recovery Act that was overseen by Vice President Joe Biden at the time, working together to create electric vehicles and charging stations along the highway. That would be the Department of Transportation working with the Department of Energy. And you know what it would mean? It would mean that the Department of Energy does much more than babysit nuclear weapons, because that's basically what the Department of Energy is there for. Instead, the Department of Energy would be working on issues of energy, zero emission vehicles, things like that, because other countries are moving ahead, and we will be left behind if we don't fix our transportation and energy issues, okay? if we don't spend money on research and development. So can you imagine our energy agency actually researching and paying more attention to energy issues? 6 million new jobs. 6 million jobs with strong labor protections. 6 million jobs, clean drinking water. 6 million jobs, connecting people with jobs and resources. I mean, this is what transportation and energy should have been doing all along, working together on climate change, auto industry issues, and the charging stations that are going to be needed along the highways in order to get there. So this is why these two have been selected. But will they get confirmed? All comes down to Georgia. Can you believe that? It's true. It's real. That's where we are. And yes, you have to vote.
And of course, honk for your next United States Senators, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. Georgia, let me start with two simple words. Thank you. Thank you for turning out in record numbers in November election. Thank you for the faith you put in me and Vice President-elect Harris. And thank you for standing strong to make sure your voices were heard, your votes were counted, and counted, and counted again. I'm starting to feel like I won Georgia 3 times.
You did.
I have to say, it feels pretty good. You know, I think all of you just taught Donald Trump a lesson. In this election, Georgia wasn't going to be bullied. Georgia wasn't going to be silenced. Georgia certainly wasn't going to stand by and let Donald Trump or the state of Texas or anyone else come in here and toss out your votes. But you know who didn't stand by? You know who did nothing while Trump, Texas, and others were trying to wipe out every single one of the almost 5 million votes you had cast here in Georgia in November? Your 2 Republican senators. They stood by.
Yep.
In fact, your 2 Republican senators fully embraced what Texas was telling the Supreme Court. They fully embraced nullifying nearly 5 million Georgia votes. You might want to remember that come January 5th. Now, I'll try to be generous here in the spirit of the season. Maybe your senators were just confused. Maybe they think they represent Texas. Well, if you want to do the bidding of Texas, you should be running in Texas.
Yeah. Those 2 criminals, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. I mean, nobody ever voted for Kelly Loeffler, ever, for Senate. She was appointed by the guy that she's attacking, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, to replace Johnny Isakson, who retired. And David Perdue, who is a one-termer. He's one term and decided to use his office to self-deal, right? He got COVID briefings. She got COVID briefings. You know they bought body bags? Do you know that that's what they invested in when they heard the COVID news? Not only did they sell retail and, service industry stocks that they had because they knew that things were going to get shut down and didn't tell anybody in Georgia or the United States for that matter about what they heard in those briefings. Oh, no, oh, hell no. They stood by Donald Trump when he said it was a miracle and it was just going to pass when there were only 15 people in this country that had COVID. 15. Now it's 15 million people in this country have had COVID. Now it's 3,000 a day die from COVID. Now it's 100,000 new cases that we find every single day in this country. You had 15 people could have done. Anyway, they stayed quiet and they literally bought body bags. They invested in companies that manufacture body bags. It's so ghoulish. It's just so disgusting. And they're asking Georgians to vote for them? To vote for them. No, and I have to imagine that Georgia knows. I have to imagine that they know that these 2 are criminals and that either they're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome to the point where they'll vote for criminals over a real Christian. I mean, you have a real reverend running in this election. Reverend Raphael Warnock is a real reverend. you had churches burned, black churches burned over the weekend at these, MAGA rallies, right? These lunatic, fringe, Trump deranged people burnt down churches. And the real Christians are running for office, but MAGA doesn't care.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Look, everything that is in that package is vitally needed. The problem is it is a much smaller amount than the country needs in this moment of economic desperation. As you know, a week ago there was virtually no discussion about direct payment, about providing help to working families and their kids, which to my mind should be the major priority, because we're looking at a moment when so many of our families are struggling to feed their kids, worried about getting evicted, have no money to go to a doctor. We got to get money directly to working families. And I'm glad that, as I understand it right now, we're at some $600 per adult, working class adult, and $600 for the kids. So for a family of four, that would be $2,400, which I think will be pretty good news during this rather bleak Christmas period with the pandemic. But we have got to do more. We have got to do more because the working class of this country, frankly, is in worse shape economically than any time since the Great Depression. So this is a step forward, and I certainly look forward to a Biden administration working with us to provide significantly more help to those people who need it.
Yeah, 9 months after the House passed the HEROES Act, 9 months later, the HEROES Act was, what, $2.2 trillion or something in that neighborhood, right? And then we went down to 1.8, and now they're talking about $748 billion, $500 billion of it unspent money from the first CARES Act tranche of money that was clawed back by Steve Mnuchin, so it has to be reappropriated again. So basically what Mitch McConnell is agreeing to is a couple, like $148 billion of new money. In the middle of a mass casualty event, in the middle of Christmas, in the middle of 8 million people being sucked into poverty, not even falling. They go, oh, they fell into poverty. They didn't fall, they were pushed. They were pushed because there was no national containment strategy for this virus, ever. Not even now. And who controls the Senate is going to determine whether or not this country can add back the 10 million jobs that we've lost, get these 8 million people that just got sucked into poverty out of poverty. And you know what poverty is in this country? It's $26,000 for a family of four. A husband, a wife, or a husband and a husband, a wife and a wife, and 2 kids. $26,000. What? How in the world? I mean, you can't even pay rent on that, let alone rent, food, health insurance, transportation, gas, electric, water. I mean, who are we kidding here with these numbers? And yes, the Senate is broken.
Of course, it's taken 9 months to get this far. The House passed their act back in May. Mitch McConnell wouldn't put anything on the floor.
Right.
So how important is it for Americans to see changes in the way the Senate operates?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, there's no question that under Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership, this has been one of the worst do-nothing Senates in American history.
Yep.
You talk about the health care crisis.
Right.
There hasn't been any discussion. We talk about the starvation wages that millions of Americans are working. No discussion at all on the Senate floor to raise the minimum wage to a living wage of at least $15 an hour. Climate change, no discussion. Criminal justice, virtually nothing. Immigration reform, virtually nothing. So I hope very much, by the way, that in Georgia, the good people of Georgia elect 2 Democrats so we can have Democratic control over the Senate and start moving an agenda that works for working people and not just the billionaires of this country.
So let me ask people who think that they have been forgotten and may live in a place that we all agree should be called the Rust Belt, but the acceptance that we have a Rust Belt is unsatisfactory to me. It's unforgivable. And it has been going on since the 70s. Rust Belt. People just say it like it's the way it's supposed to be. No, it's not supposed to be. And every time we have Republicans, every time the economy crashes, people lose ground, and then you have people screaming in the streets about deficit spending. But whenever Republicans are in charge, they redistribute the wealth, reverse socialism. They take it from people who work, who are taxed at a higher rate than people who make money off of their money in the first place. And then they redistribute the wealth that we create by working and paying a high tax rate on work into the Treasury. They take that money from the Treasury and they deliver it to the donors. They deliver it to the donor class. They deliver it to the billionaires. They deliver it to people who can afford a lobbyist. They deliver it to people who could know to get a lobbyist to apply for a grant for their business or some such thing like this. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be grants for building infrastructure in this country, and the lobbyists, believe me, all of K Street right now in Washington, D.C., every lobby shop are applying for grants. They're working on their proposals to get the grant money for their clients. Okay, that is how it works. That is the real truth of how it goes. But if we don't get a Senate that can even appropriate money to people who work for a living, can even appropriate money for small businesses that had to close their doors or will have to close their doors, if we can't get money to restaurants and to retailers, mom and pop stores, honest to God, man, the last time we had to do a stimulus was the last time we had a Republican president who crashed the economy. And no Republican, I think three Republicans voted for the stimulus package when Barack Obama needed to stimulate our economy. And it was too small, and that's why growth was there, but it wasn't as robust as you wish. That's why people got restless and started complaining. And that's what Mitch McConnell knows, that you just dangle. He's a dangler, okay? You just dangle a little bit of help, just a little bit, and then you withhold the rest. You withhold the rest so people get frustrated. And then they elect another Republican president, and they do it all over again. All over again. Because they exploit rage. They exploit fear. They exploit people's outrage. People's struggle. That's what they play on. They tell you you're the forgotten man. They talk this big populist game. So why is it when you have a real populist, why is it when you have a real person, a real senator who believes in stimulating the people who have been stepped on and forgotten and pushed aside in favor of billionaires redistributing wealth, I don't understand why people like that vote for Republicans. I honestly do not get it. It makes no sense.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, we are in the last, what's today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the last 3 days of the Free Speech TV Winter Pledge Drive. And we did okay yesterday. We did really well, actually. And the day before, not so bad. But we still have to raise about 20 a day, 20 G's. It's a lot of money. But that's what it takes to pay 16 people who run Free Speech TV out there in Denver, Colorado. That is where Free Speech TV is headquartered. That is where those 16 people work, and they do an amazing heavy lift every single day, running a major television enterprise, okay? They make sure it gets to DirecTV, Channel 348. They make sure that Dish Network has the feed, 9415. They make sure there's good content on there. And they do it all without taking any advertising dollars from any retailer, corporate, nothing. And no political money. None. Not from anybody. And so it's all listener and viewer supported. And we count on you during these pledge drives to help us meet the, I'll just call it the nut that we have every single month to pay for electricity, for, the whole 9 yards. So if we do get to the goal on Friday, then we do have somebody who will give another $10,000 as a thank you for us, working this hard to get to the goal to get all 16 people paid. So if you want to help, if you can help, please do help by dialing 877-378-8669. It's right there on your screen, 877-378-8669, and talk to one of the great 16 people that work there. Or if you just want to do it while you're on your computer, that's fine. Just go to freespeech.org. Freespeech.org. No TV. Just freespeech.org. And give what you can. We have lots of thank you presents. We have social distancing kits. We have hoodies. We have our Do Your Homework winter box. We have Change Never Happens from the Top Down canvas totes. We've got webcam covers at all different price points. So you tell us how much, and we'll tell you what you qualified for, and we'll be happy to send it to you. I have hats. I just got a whole bunch of hats. I will autograph them for you and send them to you for $150. Just do what you can if you can. If you can't, that's fine. We're glad to be here for you. And just know, nobody influences us. We don't have to have meetings to decide whether or not we're going to call President-elect Joe Biden President-elect Joe Biden. All right? And thank you. Thank you very much. Bill in Florida.
Yeah, good afternoon, Randy.
Hey.
I appreciate your intensity, especially at this time. About Bernie, I agree with Bernie wholeheartedly. Not only is Social Security being undermined right now, but so all the citizens who need their help from the federal government, like the industrial countries in Europe. I can't see why we can't adopt what they've adopted. Your thoughts, please. Thank you very much.
Okay. Honestly, I'm not really clear about why people trash Bernie Sanders. I'm not really, except that they manufacture rage at his willingness to say that if you pay taxes for work, it shouldn't be more. It shouldn't be more of a percentage of your income than people who make money off of their money pay. I don't know why that is so offensive to Republicans, except that they have a machine that manufactures rage and conspiracy theories about what it would mean if Americans who work for a living actually paid less than people who make money off of their money pay to live lavish lifestyles on your back. They name it. They call it socialism. Let me name what's going on. It's reverse socialism. Whenever you have a central treasury, whenever people are paying into a treasury, then there's going to be some sort of disbursement of that money. Now, taxes are the price of a civilized society. I think we all agree on that. That's why we pay them. But the rate at which you are paying them is ridiculous in this here country, because most of us work to make our money, whether we work for ourselves or we work for a corporation or we work for as a contractor in the gig economy, driving an Uber or whatever we do. Why are we paying a heavier price because we work than people who don't? That to me is something unfathomable. And yet this Republican Party and their echo chamber is so successful at talking people into believing these far-flung conspiracy theories about somebody is trying to get something from you and change the way America works and fundamentally change. Listen, this president that we're saying goodbye to, This president fundamentally changed America in really dangerous and ugly ways. He changed the tax code to benefit the wealthiest Americans. He changed regulation to benefit the wealthiest corporate owners. He got rid of clean water, clean air. You have lead poisoning. You've got these forever chemicals that are, need to be cleaned up. America's becoming a giant Superfund site. I mean, it is so amazing how successful they are at manufacturing rage directed at the person who's trying to help you. It's like they've all become rabid dogs that bite the hand that feeds them. And for the life of me, if we don't change that, if we don't make sure that there is an understanding in this country that the Republican Party are a criminal enterprise that engage in the transference of funds from us to their donor class, to their well-connected, to the lobbyists' clients, we're never going to have an America that functions the way it did when we had a president known as Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That was the last time we were ever in a jam where the president of the United States was able to help the American people not go hungry, not go without housing, get back to work, manufacture things, build things in this country, do arts projects, for God's sake, do conservation projects, do energy grids, electrical grids. The Tennessee Valley Authority. I mean, honestly, we need broadband in this country. Do you really think Mitch McConnell is interested in spending money on rural America? Are you kidding me? What do they have to return to him? Apparently, with 18% approval, he can get reelected in Kentucky. So go figure. I'm telling you, this whole messaging that they've been doing is such a con and such a fraud and so dangerous and ugly. And besides for that, 8 million more people are living on less than $26,000 a year in this country. And that's people with children. 26,000 is the poverty line for a family of 4. If you make $26,000 a year and you don't have a partner with children, you're not considered poor. What? And here we are trying to get a package, a stimulus package that has no chance of actually stimulating much, but will be a Band-Aid to stop the bleeding. We literally are talking about giving money in this stimulus package to food banks. That's how bad it is.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
So it's interesting. McConnell finally, I face facts, I guess, realizes that Biden is, in fact, the president-elect. But what I find more fascinating is behind closed doors, he's essentially telling his caucus, don't pull any funny business on January 6th, when there's been talk of senators like Ron Johnson potentially doing something. What did you make of that?
I agree with you. That's the more significant thing in some respects. Look, it's great he's respecting the Electoral College, but it's the fact he's saying to his colleagues, look, this January 6th date, some of you talk about working with folks in the House to kind of derail the debate. Don't do it. It's bad for the Senate. It's bad for the country. And that's the kind of leadership you need. However belated. Might have taken him 6 weeks to acknowledge the reality, but he did it. I will note it only took him 1 day to congratulate Donald Trump as president-elect after the 2016 election. But this is kind of the immovable object we've been waiting for. Someone in Republican leadership standing up to the president and corralling his caucus.
Oh, bite me. I like John Avalon. You know I do. I like his explainers, his 3-minute explainers. You know, they're very handy. They're very useful. Sometimes when I explain things, it's better that, you know, you get somebody else explaining it to you as well. And then, so we like John Avalon's explainers. But this applause for Mitch McConnell, who privately is telling his Republican caucus one thing and publicly saying another thing, and lying to the American people yet again, and not congratulating the next president of the United States of America on as soon as the Electoral College. Waiting 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and now they're. I'm telling you, this just mesmerizes me. Mesmerizes me. You applaud Mitch McConnell for doing the wrong thing for 5 weeks because he did the right thing, sorta, kinda, 5 weeks later. I can't get there. I'm sorry. I just can't. Yesterday I said, I got to correct myself, because yesterday I said that Mitch McConnell, what did I say? That he was 87 years old, and how could he be a senator for 6 more years? Well, he's only 76. And people tweeted at me and told me, you're wrong. Yeah, I was wrong, but he looks 87. He has the face of an 87. He has exactly the face that man has, like, his face and his neck are one. It's so bizarre. He's so reptilian.
I believe his species of turtle can actually live up to 400 or 500 years. I'm not sure you want to check that.
Oh, God. And for those of you who call and don't want to get on the air and keep asking Brett to explain to you how, with an 18% approval rating, Mitch McConnell got reelected, it's called coattails. Coattails. I'll bet you if you asked, I don't know, I'd say at least 40% of the Trump supporters in Kentucky who showed up to vote for Trump, who their 2 senators are, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know the name of their 2 senators. They wouldn't know who their House member is. They just showed up to vote for Trump and voted a straight Republican ticket. And that is why Mitch McConnell covered for Donald Trump throughout this entire lawless administration that did absolutely nothing. Now, you realize Obama said this a long time ago, that if something ends up on the president's desk, it's because it's really, really, really bad. Only the serious problems that America has end up on the president's desk, right? Other than that, they're going to end up, your congressman is going to have to field the call, your state senate, your governor, your state house member, assembly member, however you, wherever you live, whatever they call the state assembly, right? That's where those problems are going to end up. If a problem ends up on the president's desk, it's coronavirus, okay? And this president refused to do anything. And that is why we are where we are. Although, I keep on telling you, we were in a manufacturing recession before coronavirus. We had more than 2 quarters of negative growth in manufacturing. We had 1 decent quarter after that tax break to the wealthy. And that was it. That was the bang for the buck for the $2 trillion we spent on making the rich richer. That's what you got for it. Nothing. Okay? Essentially. Nothing. But they talked you into this man. He was the Messiah. He was the Mashiach. I swear to God, if Jesus came back now, he'd be a brown man speaking in a foreign language with long hair. You would call him a freaking socialist. You would hate him. You really would. Maybe that's why you're so free to burn down black churches when you're angry. But you know what's really weird is the real Christians in this country, they don't say anything when the MAGA people burn churches down. They're silent on it. They have no problem with it. They don't get crazy. They don't start calling, radio shows saying, okay, I have to distance myself from this group because even, they vote for Trump and they burn down churches and I can't accept. The evangelicals that, the prosperity gospel cons that are out there, they don't have a problem with it. But here in Georgia, you have a real reverend running for the Senate. A serious Christian man running for the Senate in Georgia, but he's brown like Jesus. You'll have to figure that one out for yourself. Jerry in Baltimore.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
My call. Hey, I have a problem with Mitch McConnell not recognizing the voice of the people.
You should.
The Electoral College is not the people that decides who's the president. They're just supposed to represent the voice of the people in their state. The people had spoken long time before that.
That's true. That's true. And this whole, nauseating mantra of theirs where, well, the president is entitled to explore all legal options. Not when it would take the throwing away of 8 million ballots for him to win. No, that's not something that he's entitled to pursue.
Not only that, it was a lie. We stood a better chance with Hillary and him meeting with Putin and all them things. Like, no, don't believe your lying eyes.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, now you're off the beaten path. But what I'm saying is what you're saying at the beginning of this conversation, that it is un-American of Mitch McConnell, undemocratic, un-American. It is in violation of the Constitution. We knew who had 270 electoral votes as a result of the American people casting ballots. And we've known it for 5 weeks. And Mitch McConnell refused to acknowledge that known. It wasn't an unknown known. It wasn't an unknown unknown. It was a known known. The poetry of Donald H. Rumsfeld, everybody. It was un-American what he did, okay? And it is. And you still have people that are screaming for martial law. You got state representatives. One is in Virginia, the other one's in North Carolina, that are screaming that Donald Trump should suspend habeas corpus. Donald Trump should suspend the Constitution. Donald Trump should suspend civil liberties. And Republicans who think they're all about freedom for the rich, they're all about it. They're for it. This is such madness. Doug in Denver.
Hey, Randy, longtime listener from Air America days. And I have an advertising idea, and I'm hoping like the Lincoln Project or the DNC hears it, picks up on it. But at one of the MAGA rallies in Washington, D.C., they were chanting, "Destroy the GOP, destroy the GOP." And I think that would depress the Republican vote in Georgia, and I think it would work. I think they just need to play that over and over, the video clip.
They were doing that. Those are the Proud Boy psychos who are really all about, street brawling. I mean, that's all they want to do is fight. They, Trump gives them the rage to get them all amped up, but really all they're looking for is an excuse to fight. They're like the guy you never want to invite to your party, right? The guy that drinks too much, the guy that causes trouble and ruins your party all the time. That's who they are. But I get your message. We really do need, to show the GOP that their own people want to destroy the GOP. But there really isn't a GOP anymore. It's just the party of Trump. That's what Mitch McConnell was counting on. See, because he understands people who voted for him don't even know who he is. They just went to vote for Trump. It's sad. It's really sad. That is not leadership. It is not anything that could be within spitting distance of leadership, okay? It's heinous. It's ugly. It's wrong. But Mitch McConnell doesn't care about what's right. He cares about K Street.